everyone, and welcome to Training Tuesday for January 5th, 2021. I am Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Equine Sanctuary. I have put several sessions together for you in tonight's video, some of which were filmed yesterday and some of which were actually filmed this evening. And it's a hodgepodge of different species and a hodgepodge of different learning levels. This is an impromptu training session with Vaclarouche because it's been a while since he's eaten and I see his head sticking up out of his humid hide. So I thawed him some pinkies and we'll see if we can get 2 or 3 target training repetitions from him. If he's interested in eating, I have to make sure that he sees the target, which I think he does. He's so little. I'm just gonna ask him to come out of his humid hide and over his perch and touch the target if he can reach that far. With these little guys, I'm never sure how far to physically stretch them. What a good boy. That was perfect. Vaclarouche finished his first pinky and it looks like he's coming forward to look for another one. So I don't want to overfeed him, and pinkies are pretty small. I mean, he could eat a fuzzy, one fuzzy, but instead I thought out some pinkies so that I could do more than one training repetition with him. It still looks like that pinky filled him up pretty well. So probably I'm not going to do 3. I'm only going to give him one more opportunity to earn reinforcement because I don't want him to overeat. So I'm going to present the target to him and see if I can get him maybe to move over to this shelf just to reinforce that the behavior I want is for him to follow the target. He's doing a really great job. I'm finding the younger that I start these guys, the easier it is for them to learn and pick up the training. What a good job. And he's already learned to look elsewhere for the reinforcement. So instead of thinking the reinforcement comes from the target, he approaches the target and pauses at it. And then you saw him, in that case, look to the right, to his right, for the reinforcement. And then I offered it to his left and he moved to take it. That's awesome because we don't want them to mistake the target for food or start striking at the target. We want them to realize that the operant behavior we're looking for from them is to approach and pause at or touch the target and hold there until the reinforcement's given, but that the reinforcement is offered from somewhere else. It doesn't come directly from the target. He's eating that pretty quickly. Wow. But he is just turning into such a great little snake, and he's doing a great job learning to target, as you can see, with the ultimate goal being able to target him out of his enclosure so that he voluntarily shifts out of his enclosure when I need to clean it or do maintenance, or if I need to bring him out of his enclosure for any other reason whatsoever. It's so much better for the animal's welfare if they're choosing to do that voluntarily, rather than us invading their space, being intrusive, reaching in and taking them out of safe spaces and forcing them out of their enclosure. It's better to teach them to voluntarily come out of their enclosure. And he's just doing fantastic. Our false water cobra Vashti is learning to recognize a new target because she was getting a little bit overstimulated by the other target. And so right now we are just pairing the target directly with food until she gets used to recognizing this disc target as a signal that she's to come towards it. She's very quick when she takes her meal, and if you blink, you'll miss it. Even though Vashti did not shift out of her enclosure, I take this opportunity to go ahead and spot clean, refresh her humid hide, and change her water. And I simply move the rock that's in her enclosure over the entrance to her hide so that while she's inside her hide eating her meal, I can give her a new humid hide with fresh, moist sphagnum moss, a new water dish with fresh water, and I can spot clean any urates and feces out of her bedding that I need to. And it works out really well. This learner is Grogu. He's a 5 or 6 month old California Kingsnake. This is only his third interaction with the target disc, and the first 2 times we placed the target disc inside his enclosure, both times in different locations, and left his prey items on it. And then when no one was in the room and the lights were out, he came and ate his meal. This is his third session with the target disc in his enclosure, and he came out after I put the target disc in. He approached it after I placed the pinkies on it, and he's eating the pinkies with me here and very close to him, and he's not bothered by me moving around and the lights on. So this is a huge step in the right direction for further target training in the future. This is 005, our coastal carpet python. He's about 2.5 years old. You've seen him before in many videos. He started out this session really well. He's got really confident behavior and a very fluent egress from his enclosure until he gets to the scale and starts to tongue flick and smell it. I had just cleaned this with alcohol, and he seems a little bit put off by the strange smell. So we hit a little bit of a roadblock because of the strange smell on the scale. He wasn't sure about the fresh smell of rubbing alcohol on the scale. And as you know from smelling rubbing alcohol, that smell can be quite strong for us. So imagine what that would seem like to the chemoreception of a snake. He makes it to the perch and he is tongue flicking, but he's clearly just not comfortable with something about the way this smells. So I actually stepped out of the training session for a few minutes, gave him an opportunity to interact with the scale, with the upside down stool and the perch that I have on the scale so that it's easier for him to station on it. And then when I saw that he was more relaxed with it and that he'd had some time to tongue flick at it and put his nose on it and become comfortable with it, I re-engaged with him and we started the training session again. And you see here that it's going well. He's moving out onto the scale. He's coming around one of the legs of the upside down stool and over the PVC perch. And I need him to do this so that his entire body exits his enclosure and is positioned in some way on that stool on the scale. That's the only way that we will be able to get an accurate weight from him. He can't have any part of his body still in his enclosure or hanging off the scale on that table. He needs to totally be on the stool on the scale. And then what I really like about his behavior here is this very long duration hold that we practiced. And with me just counting in my head, he held here for about 20 seconds. And when we got to the 20-second mark, I went ahead and offered him the reinforcement because I felt like at this point in his training, that was long enough to ask him to hold. This is our coastal carpet python Arium, and you've seen her before when she was in her Exoterra. When she first got here and was in quarantine, we had her in a very small Exoterra terrarium, and she was doing very well with her target training in that. Now she's in a 4-foot long enclosure. It's 4 foot long and 18 inches high and 18 inches wide. She was in her hide, and from the position I originally started in, I couldn't tell if she was responding to the target or not, and so I decided to move to the other side so that I could see if she was even looking at or orienting towards the target at all, and she was. But if you remember from her past sessions, Arium has always been kind of shy, and she has always been a very cautious learner. So while she confidently engages in the training session, she does it very slowly and very cautiously, and all I really want her to do during this session is come out of hiding and a little bit over the enclosure threshold, which she does. And then I want her to hold in place for a few seconds without striking at the target, and then take her reinforcement. You can see that she's a little bit hesitant here with this whole situation, but it's the first time that she has had a practice session since moving to her new enclosure, and she did really well. Now what I'm doing here is I really don't want her eating on the loose substrate, so I use the tongs to move her on top of her plastic hide, and then I use the target to kind of push her off.